Okay. Thank you for coming to the first session of Start on Dart. The objective of this course and this session is to start learning Dart. What I really want to do together with you within the Start on Dart community is to basically start and then get feedback from you and then improve the sessions one after other. Um, I've been teaching programming for quite some time now, and there are different approaches to teaching and learning programming. In my basic undergraduate courses, when students start from scratch, from zero, it's very difficult for me to explore more advanced techniques of teaching and learning. So I really take their hands and go through simple slides, simple examples, and it takes a lot of time. Now, with you guys, I expect to go faster because you probably have some kind of experience in programming. But again, I expect your feedback to adjust. On one extreme, when I teach programming, I have slides and I follow them slowly. On the other extreme, I have projects and then open a single project at a time, and I develop usually projects in so-called spirals, so we can see the history of development in those projects, starting with the most simple spiral and then moving one after another. And in this way, I explain within the context of one spiral whatever we use within this language, in that spiral. Please stop me anytime if you have any questions or any comments. So I would like to show you how this could work today, but I'll expect your feedback and see, how, whether this is okay for you. Okay. Now I'll start my screen share. And we will start. This is our starting point, learning Dart page. I just want to quickly explain you because what is in this page so that you can later on, easily start different things. On the left side here, you have the list of projects. Today, we are going to look at the Magic Boxes Spirals project. If we click here, we will get a GitHub page for this project. And here, this part here, you have, if you click here, you will copy to clipboard the URL of this project, and you can use it in your Git to clone the project and get it on your computer. You can see that there are many spirals here. Each spiral is a separate project. So when you clone the project on your computer, you don't need to open everything at the same time. You can open the first spiral. We'll skip the zero spiral. You can open the first spiral and then later close it, and then later on use the second one, etc. So if I come back to the learning Dart page, on the right side, for certain projects that are really web applications, you can run them within the Chrome browser. I haven't tested these applications in other browsers. So for example, here for Magic Boxes, if you click here, you will see that we have 13 spirals. So if we click on spiral 1, we will get here a small web application in JavaScript generated from Dart. So this is the result of our first spiral, to draw two rectangles, two boxes within this canvas here, and this is it. So the first spiral is relatively simple, but still there are many things to explain with the language, even for this simple output. If we look at the last spiral here, for let's say 13, we'll see that you can start creating basically a semantical network model or entity relationship model, if you want to, by using the tool, create a relationship here, then name the boxes or entities or concepts, etc. And you can produce a JSON description of your model, and you will find here a tiny user's guide, etc. But this is the last spiral, and I am not going to cover this last spiral today for sure. So what I really want to do today is take go together with you through the first 3 spirals in Dart Editor. So I'll switch to Dart Editor now. I'll open existing folder. I look at my Dart folder with a model subfolder, and there I'll find different projects related to models or modeling. And I'll here find my spirals project, and I'll just open the first spiral. If we look at the first spiral, it's just a folder or directory. It has 6 sub spirals if you want. Each sub spiral here is a separate project that you can run. So what I really did here, even for this simple spiral, I divided this into 6 sub spirals to go very slowly at the beginning. You can skip certain steps later on if you want. So it's up to you to adjust to the speed. For example, if I open the last one, and if I select the HTML page and I run in Dartium, which is a Dart virtual machine within Dart Editor, I see the result, the final result of this first spiral. But if I take the 0 spiral and I run it in Dartium, I'll get something similar but simpler than the last sub-spiral. So let's see what we have here in our first attempt to do something. At the very beginning, we'll skip the packages folder. We'll come back later later on to do that, because you really don't need to have them. The only thing, the reason that you have them is that you want to use, to create a web application, and you need to run it, within a browser, and the code will use something from the browser software. But the main portion are these 2 files, MB.dart and MBA.html. So you have one file for your code, and you have one file for your HTML code. Okay, let's start with the HTML code, which is just a regular code. I have a body here. I have a header with the title, and I have one element, HTML element, which is a HTML5 element, which is canvas. The ID is canvas, and I have here the size of that, the portion where we are going to draw 600 pixels by 400 pixels. And then we have 2 script elements telling us that the source code for this simple web application is in the MB.dart file. It's the Dart application. And the second script tells us that if we want, we can generate basically the Dart code into JavaScript and execute it within Chrome. Okay, so this is the reason that we are using packages, because within packages we have browser software, and there is a JavaScript file that will help us really, handle JavaScript execution if we don't want to just use Dartium. But at the beginning we are going to use Dartium, meaning our MBA.dart file. In this MBA.dart file, I start with the predefined main function, like in many other languages like Java. There is one import that I have to do because I'm developing here a web application. So I have to import a Dart library called Dart HTML. We'll come back to these libraries a little bit later on. And the first thing I have to do is to establish a relationship between my HTML element with the ID that must be unique within a page. In this case, it's Canvas, and I have a predefined document representing basically my web page, and a method called query selector that will look within the HTML page for this element, and finally I'll get the Dart object representing that element. So we always have to establish this relationship between the HTML element and the Dart object. I'm using var keyword, which says it's a variable, you know, and I don't know exactly what the type is right now. So, but that editor will be able to determine the type based on what I'm using here. Once I have the Canvas object, I'll be using the getContext method to get basically the two-dimension portion that I am going to work with, because we also have the three-dimension portion. I'll call it context, and then I'll be using this context, you know, to start drawing. I'll be using the two-dimensional context for drawing. What I'm doing here, I'm basically taking two properties of the Canvas object, width and height, and that are initialized in my HTML page here with 600 and 400 pixels, and I'll put them into local variables with the same name, width and height, and I'll draw with this part of code here these two rectangles. I have to prepare the drawing by starting with begin path method of the context object, and then I have to close this path, basically the definition of what I'm going to draw. And the real drawing will be done by the stroke method here. So I'm drawing two rectangles, and I'm using the rectangle or rect method of the context, and the first one will be positioned at 0, 0, and the second one will be positioned at x20 and y20. Okay, excuse me. You know, this is the rectangle that determines the size of my canvas. Excuse me. So this is the reason that I'm using width and height of my HTML canvas object. Definitely will start at 0, 0 element, which is in my upper left corner. And when you are drawing, your x goes from the left to the right, and your y goes from top to the bottom. You know, so the second two calls to rectangle methods will be drawing, you know, these two small rectangles basically, and then at the end, when I use stroke, I'll draw the two rectangles. So, you know, what I'm trying to do here is to explain you pretty quickly, you know, what's going on here. Now, what you need to do in some kind of active learning is, if certain things are not clear to you, we always have our Start on Dart community, so please ask questions, and I'll be checking that every day, so I'll give you answers. Also, you can look at different, you know, things that are available to you, like a book or books or tutorials or whatever, and to understand what's going on a little bit more than that. So to help you with this, in our Learning Dart page, we have some links here after our applications, and you can go to On Dart education page, and on this page you will find basically two links. One for web programming course that I really use with a very slow pace with beginners in programming, and so I'll open this, and web projects course that I'm using with a little bit more advanced students, and it is project based. So I'll open both. The first one, web programming, you have the schedule here, session by session, and I mentioned in the Start on Dart community that we are going today to look at the first session here, just so because we had to start somewhere. But if you look at this page, you will see, for example, that we have in week 7 or week 8 actually, we have a subject of Canvas and drawing, and you will find my slides and many examples. So you can come here and see these examples, you know, and I'll be drawing all kinds of things. Okay, so a question for me. Oh, I have a Nitya as well.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you very much for coming. I'm really sorry for this confusion. I thought it would be much easier to start, you know, with Hangouts on air, but I'll practice that for the next week.
No problem. I'll turn my camera on for a second and say hello, but I'm going to turn it off because it's really wrecking my quality. I don't even know if it'll work. Probably not. It doesn't look like it does. Okay. Hopefully it's okay. There's something wrong with my computer. Anyway.
I would ask you when just to put your micro off because I'm hearing the.
Got it. Muted.
Go back to the slides, so you can go to these slides and learn a little bit more about Canvas. But if I go back to this page here, you will see that we have in the for the first session, I'm also giving you a link to a very simple project for these slides that you can clone with the Git software, and you will see here that each folder carries the name of the title for slides. So you will find on.canvas here. If you open it, you will find, let's say if I take a Canvas 0, which is a little bit more simple than the other one. Many examples. Like you can see, many examples. One example per slide usually. So there are many things that you can use, to basically explore things that I use in one project. So I'm coming back to this first spiral, and you have to realize with this spiral approach, I'm only explaining things that are pertinent to this spiral, and nothing more, and nothing else, and nothing less. But it's up to you, to explore a little bit more. For example, if I'll just close this here, and if I take spiral 0, I'll first execute it, and it looks like the same thing. But if I look at the code, okay, this is okay. If you look at the code, you will see that the code changed just slightly. So we can go with these things very, very slowly and explain every single detail. We will not be doing this, in the next week. So we'll be going here with my computer. Okay. So you see here that I introduced types for my local variable. So you know here that I'm talking about Canvas element here. It is coming from this .html library, and then for the context, the class name is a little bit longer, and this is basically the only difference. If we go to the S02 sub-spiral of the first spiral, you will see that we introduced in this spiral a function, so our main becomes simpler. The only thing we do is establish that relationship between the HTML element and our Canvas object of the Canvas element type, and then we call this function and pass Canvas as the argument, and then the function which doesn't return any value, this is the reason that we are using void, taking this parameter, and then you will basically do the same thing that we did before. So just a slight change to introduce a function. If we go further, we'll find here that now we have two functions, one to display boxes and the other one to display board, meaning the rectangle where we are going to draw, so that each function focuses on one thing. And you can explain it to beginners, let's say, why do you use two functions and not one function, and things like that. If we go to S04, you will see a little bit more complex code now. Why? Because we introduced a new file called board dot, and in this file, we are creating a class for the first time, representing our board or our diagram where we are going to draw. The class has 4 attributes: x, y, width, and height. Has also context. I don't know, my screen is going off and on all the time, You have the constructor of the class taking the canvas object, and then from the canvas object using the getContext two-dimension method, we get the value for the attribute. The same thing here with width and height, and then we call border method and init method of the class. Border will just draw the border, and init will initialize our board with two rectangles. Basically the same code that we had, but organized differently now using this class. You see also that we say that this class is part of the MB library, and our MB dot starts with a keyword library, meaning we are basically declaring library called MB. We are importing, as we did before, our .html library from dot, and we are saying that in addition to this mb.dot, we have another file called board.dot that is part of our library, and the board.dot file says it's part of the library at the very beginning. In this way, dot establishes the relationship between these two files. And although this library doesn't appear in these packages because it's just a local library within the code that we have here, we need to do that because we are using two dot files, and one file makes a reference to, here in this case, a class board. So we are creating with the keyword new an object of this class and passing the canvas object that we get from the HTML page, and then in the board.dot file we have the constructor that will create this object and call border and init. And this is the reason when we execute this in Datium, which is a dot virtual machine with the dot editor, we have these two rectangles or two boxes within a bigger rectangle. And nothing more than that. The last subspiral has a little bit more, because what we are going to introduce in this last spiral is another dot file called box, and then within this box dot file we have another class which is called box. Appropriately, the constructor for this class takes 5 arguments to populate 5 attributes of this class. Board is the parent class, if you want to. Okay, I have someone asking a question, I guess. Yes. Any questions?
Sorry, I think it's my bad. I just pressed the wrong button. I'm sorry.
No problem at all. Okay, if you have questions, please, stop me anytime. So this is very nice in that we are using this keyword, which is basically a shortcut, meaning accept an argument, take this argument, being an object, and put it into the board attribute of this class at the same time. In Java, we would say somewhere within the constructor, this dot board, assignment, a board a parameter to do the same thing. So you are saving a lot of space and time by doing these types of things. The same thing with the x, y, width, and height will accept 4 arguments for the box, position of the box within our diagram, and the size of the box, and we will populate our attributes. We have a method called draw to draw this box, and then and this is the reason that we need to have the board attribute, because within this board object, meaning within the board class, we have the context attribute, and there we'll find the appropriate methods for preparing our drawing and as we did before. So our box class has part of MB library, so it is a part of MB library, and our library has more than one part now. We have 2 parts, meaning these 2 files. Now, if we look at all these subspirals, what I try to do in this first spiral is basically introduce you to the basics of that code, starting with main, which is a predefined function where you start executing a Dart program, and then doing certain things directly within main. With simple code, we can do that quite often, with many examples, as I do with this, web programming course and the separate project with many small examples. But then gradually, I moved the code from main into functions, separate functions within the same file, which is basically functional approach, no classes yet, but it's still organized in such a way that you can explain these things in a nice way. Each function focuses on one task, and then we switch to the class approach of organizing the code, introducing a new Dart file. Within this Dart file, we have a new class, explain the concept of library, because you have to put these things together. You are referencing a class in one file that is defined in a different file, and you can basically start discussions by saying, do we need to have two files here? Could we define those two classes within the same file? Sure, we could. I could have put books class in the board Dart file. So this is the question of organizing your project using classes, and I tend to, at the very beginning, to separate things, like with functions. One function focused on one task, one class focused on one concept within your small application. So what do we have in this application? Basically, we have a web page. Within a web page, we have a canvas where we are going to draw, and within this canvas, we have two rectangles or two boxes. So this is the reason that we have 3 Dart files. One Dart file representing your web page with MB HTML code for your HTML elements. And in this file, we create a canvas object from the HTML element in your code, and then creating an object of the board class, which represents your diagram where you are going to draw, and then using the box class to create two boxes. We can execute this code as JavaScript as well from Dart editor, and it should give us here in well, just to be sure that we are getting this from Dart editor. So I'll do it again. Run as JavaScript, and we should get our magic boxes in Dart with 2 boxes, in the Chrome browser. I'll just close all these pages. So we have this first spiral covered in a relatively short period of time. We are late with the start of this Hangout, but the objective now is, after the course, definitely is to basically understand the code used in this first spiral. And you can ask questions within our community, start on that. If you want to discuss certain things, in private with me for any reason, just, you have my email through Google Plus page, we can do that. After this course, I have 1 hour more, to have a private Hangout for if you want to explore certain things that you don't understand and you want to do it in private, or if you don't understand or don't use Git, maybe we can go through Git or something like that. And I'll try to be available every week for an hour for these private Hangouts, for people that really want to do something, in private, perhaps more deeply, or ask more questions. I would really appreciate if after this first session, during this week, you come back to this first spiral, you look at the code, you ask questions, you read, you go to the slides in the web programming course, you look at, you try to get a Canvas tutorial with that, or look in my book or some other books, basically try to cover what is covered within this spiral and understand almost every single detail. In this case, in the next spiral, we can go much faster. And then you will see that after a week or two, we can say, okay, this is enough for this project. So what I want to do or to discuss with you is basically what are we going to do week after week. And if I look at the Learning Dart, it's somewhere here. Okay, I'll do it again then. Okay, so what I really want to see with you together during the week, you know, should we continue with this project, or you would like to go to another project, or you would like to spend more time on this project, you know. I'll try to go through at least, but more quickly, go through S02 and perhaps S03 spiral, but it's up to you. So please give me your feedback, and then, you know, we can decide together what is the next project that we can open, use spirals, and go slowly at the beginning, and you can continue, you know, working on spirals at home, ask questions, and in this way, if we can cover 4, 5, 6, 7 projects, that would be great, because at the end of this course, let's say in week 12, 9, or 10, we can open maybe a polymer project with spirals. I have a project like that, and then we can, you know, go into, and even at the end go through the Angular project. I still don't have spirals for an Angular project, but I will prepare them, you know, during this course.
Hi, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Hey, so first of all, sorry, how do I say your name?
Okay, my name is Jenan.
Jenan, okay.
I guess you would write it like D-J-E-N-A-N, something like that.
Okay, awesome. Hi, Jenan. So I guess my question is, I wasn't sure what the level of Dart understanding that this audience had. I'm fairly new to it, so the reason I asked is, do you kind of plan to maybe do an introduction to the concepts before you jump into code, or would other people here like to have that, or will you kind of just, you know, let's just jump into code directly? So one of the things I was thinking was, you know, the slides that you had done, Jenan, like online, okay. I actually liked them. They gave me a good understanding of like the big picture. Mm-hmm. So I was hoping that maybe you would have done a little intro with that before jumping into code, but I was kind of curious to know what other people thought.
Okay, so let's see with other people. What do you think?
Go ahead. I've like what you've done just now for me was fine. Like I know Dart enough to be able to follow what you've been doing. So me personally, I don't oppose going over the slides, but I didn't feel it would be needed for me.
Okay. What about?
For my part, just going through it this way was fine. I've been through the first 4 spirals, and I think familiarity with a couple of other class-based languages makes it easier, I guess. But just diving straight in like this was fine for me.
Okay. We have our Start on Dart community. So after the course, during this week and the next week, we can discuss these things, you know, how we want to proceed. Nothing is frozen. You know, I am a guy who really wants to hear what you think, and together we can decide how to proceed. The only thing that I know, using my teaching experience, is that if we stick to slides and explain small things, we can go, but we'll go very slowly, okay? And it's usually good for people that start from scratch, from zero. I also know if I go to the other extreme, if I go very fast with different projects, it's difficult to follow because you have to work before and after the course, basically. But
okay. Sorry. Fair enough. No, actually, I was kind of wondering what the level for everyone here was, but if people are comfortable jumping straight into code, that's good. I kind of, like, you know, the things that I wanted to know, I can pick up offline, so this doesn't matter to me. But no, if we go directly in the code in the spiral version, that's fine.
Okay. We have our Start on Dart community, so it's up to us. You can do a little bit of work before, and I can tell you like at the next week what we are going to cover or something like this, and then it's up to us to decide together. So you please tell me if this is too slow or too fast or too boring, or you don't like to look at the code all the time. The only thing that I know using my teaching experience, and I have it quite a lot, is that I personally prefer this project spiral-driven approach, which means I do not cover subjects first and then look at projects. I take a project, take spirals of the projects because you have the history of development of this project, and we just cover only things that are covered by this project. So if you ask me a question with this approach, but what about this? I say, please wait until we hit another spiral or another project. It's out of the scope of this approach. So it's either project-driven or concept-driven approach to teaching and learning. My experience with more advanced students, we can go faster, further, and do more interesting things if we are project-driven and not concept-driven. For example, every single book, including mine, is usually concept-driven, which is boring for me because you have to cover all kinds of concepts. You give small examples, and then you go slowly. And almost at the end of the book, you may say, aha, I can, With the project-driven approach, you say, well, the first thing we do, we start a project, and then we will just read and do whatever we need to finish the first spiral. And that's how I develop basically my educational material, or how I do my projects. I don't learn sequentially. I don't take a book, and read every single chapter. I choose a project. That's how I learned Dart. And this was my first project in Dart. But exactly this one. I started 2 years ago, in January 2 years ago, and developed these spirals. I changed the code a little bit because Dart was changing, but that was basically my first project with the Dart. Now, you can always take one spiral and criticize it and say, well, but there is another spiral. In each new spiral, you may introduce a different way of doing things, and you can discuss it. You can skip certain spirals. You can go faster, slower, and you can even execute the last spiral and say, wow, this is interesting. Could we get to this point faster? It's up to you to tell me if you do certain work, in your free time. I know how free is difficult, to define. We can go faster, but doesn't bother me to go slower either. The only thing that I know with my teaching experience is if you get prepared before the course, you will take exactly the same amount of time as you did after the course, but you will learn 3 times more because you go through certain things before. And then we can start asking questions, and I can really focus on things that are not clear to you, and not just skip completely things that are clear to you. So it's more proactive approach. I'm not asking you to spend more hours. I'm asking you to spend exactly the same number of hours, but to come a little bit prepared, for the next time. And I have to help you with that, so that you can look at certain projects and certain spirals before the course, and then even ask questions before, and then we can go faster in a more constructive way. But it's up to you. I know, we are busy. You won't have time to do it. If you don't have time to do it, then it's easier to, come in this session and basically do, whatever we need to do, to cover certain things, and then look at it after the course. It's really up to you to tell me. We have our community Start on Dart, so please guide me, tell me how do you feel, what do you want to cover, is it slow or fast or boring, and I'll adjust completely. I have many different projects. The only thing I know is that I can go much faster by using projects and spirals like this with people that have more experience. It's difficult to do that when you have undergraduate students without any experience in programming. Then you have to go much slower, and then you have to really cover certain concepts, and you have to go through certain slides before. So we have to work together on this. We have our community. You can give me your feedback. We can discuss these things during the week, and then plan together. I know that it requires you a little bit, perhaps a little bit more time, but it's really up to you. If I don't get any feedback, if you don't really guide me, I'll just continue, you know, certain things. And I know that it will be boring for you to stick with the same project for more than 2 weeks. So let's say, you know, we can continue the next week with more advanced spirals in this project, or, you know, basically, if you prefer, we can go to another project. You have the book. Most of those projects are covered in one way or another. And you know, please, you know, help me to decide what to do, you know, the next time, so that we are more productive. Any comments so far?
If I can add my experience, to me this is fine. I mean, what I'm expecting is also to see something going really fast. I don't know you guys, but I believe we are all developers here. I believe that we are all web developers. We've been developing this for years. So what we want to see, I mean, this is what I'm expecting, is just to see the cool feature of Dart that allows me to choose this language instead the standard languages that I'm using in my daily work. This is basically what I'm expecting, and to me, going fast through code is the best way to see new things. Then at the end, if I want to inspect more or learn something more, I can do this by myself.
Okay, Miro, thank you.
Welcome.
So please give me your comments, you know, either now or later on in our community, and if we work together, we can define these things, you know, together and go with the pace that is good for you. The last thing that I wanted to do, you know, today is just to show you what we have in the next 2 spirals. So I open spiral 2, and if I look at the last sub-spiral here and I run it, you see, you know, I can do certain things, you know, like I can move these boxes and I'll eat some of them, you know, and this is the reason I'm calling this moving monsters. And up to this point, you know, again, I go relatively slowly through sub-spirals so you can see what's going on. Let's say if I execute this one, you will see, because, you know, there are certain things that are happening right now, and we have to basically do something not to see, you know, the path of the moving objects. And if I take the spiral 3, and I added, I didn't have this before, so I added, you know, this spiral here. You can see now that we have 2 folders, library folder and the web folder, which is, our project starts looking like a real regular Dart project. And in our web folder, we have our HTML file with NBA Dart file, which is very simple. You know, the only thing we are doing here is creating a board and nothing more than that. So let's say I'll run it. Did I run it? Okay. You can see I can now, by clicking on the diagram, I can create these boxes. I can select them, and there is some kind of a selection, you know, and I can move them a little bit. Okay, and this is it, you know, for this spiral here. I still have two files, a board and box, and I have my library that is a separate file that tells clearly what the name of this library is, Magic Boxes, that I'm importing, you know, 2 Dart libraries, HTML and a synchronous library, and I have 2 parts of this library, which are really these 2 files here, board Dart for the diagram and box Dart for my boxes. If I look at the board class, I can see that I have a list of boxes now. Boxes is a new property, which is a list of boxes in Dart. and that I have an event called onMouse down, and then I can create, in this event a new box, basically, and I'm using in this spiral a new way of drawing things with Dart, trying to use, some more friendly features of Dart, not to repeating the context object all the time and things of that nature. So because we are running out of time, I cannot, go through all of these details if we want to stick within 1 hour presentation. And this is the reason, and I have many spirals, so this is the reason, if we all together get a little bit more prepared for the session, then we can go faster, and you can choose what should I cover basically before the class. So if we succeed in being proactive, I know that it may require a little bit more time on your part, but then we can go faster, and then you select things that are more appropriate for you. Any reactions so far?
I know I find it pretty useful to see like the spirals, like the difference in the code and how you're refactoring it and making it better. So it's nice to see the approach that you've taken to to get from one point to the next and make it so that the code's more reusable and all that. So I mean that's pretty nice to see it in the spirals.
Okay, anyone else?
I would agree about the format. I think when I first looked at the spiral approach, I thought it would be a very slow-paced approach, but I think it can actually lend itself to moving quickly. And I agree with Miro if we're prepared, and and we move quickly, we can cover a lot of territory and still comprehend what we're covering.
This is a great point. Really realize one thing. Each spiral moves a little bit further, and each spiral introduces something new or something different. You can compare two spirals relatively easily and see what are the differences. It takes a lot of time to basically prepare spirals and then write up, all of them. It's a huge work. So I do not have lots of documents around these spirals because it takes a lot of time. But you can compare them, and it's up to you. Whatever you can digest on your own, that's good for you. And then you come and tell me, Jenan, look, there are certain things I don't understand. Please, could you explain them or cover them? Okay. But what is the advantage of this approach? You can take your own pace. You go with these spirals. You can go fast at the very beginning, and then you slow down because I'll introduce more concepts each time. You can criticize certain spirals, and we'll see the better solutions later on. We can have a discussion on that, and you can ask specific questions. I understand this, but I do not understand, that portion. So it's up to you to lead me. I know with my students I usually don't get any interaction, so I basically go slowly, explain things in the time frame that I have. I ask them a few questions. I give them a project to do and things like that, or certain exercises, and then we cover our 15 weeks, and this is it. But it's up to you, to guide me. If certain things are trivial for you, why we should wait our time on that? If certain things are more complicated, because Dart is a new language for you, there are some things that you don't find perhaps in some other languages in this way, then ask questions before or during, and I can even come prepared if I have a list of questions before. So we can focus on difficult points of Dart or interesting points of Dart and skip boring points of Dart. I have a pretty good experience now with Dart, for almost 2.5 years. I'm with Dart almost from the very beginning. I started learning Dart maybe 3 days after they announced Dart. I jumped on that and I was working, I have been working almost all the time, So I know quite a lot, not everything for sure, but it's up to us really to decide where to go. I will, for this course, if you want to call it in this way, I have reserved, I think, 12 weeks, so like 3 months. So if we can cover more in these 12 weeks, and if we can in the last 2 or 3 weeks cover Polymer and Angular, this is great. You know, then we can go out of this course and say, well, I've learned something, and we can even develop certain projects together. It's really up to us. So please guide me, and I'm very proactive-oriented guy. And if we can find even a project together during this course, why not? Let's do it together as a team, you know, or make a competition, 2 different teams, and then, you know, compete by doing the same thing, you know, so to get a little bit more excitement based on this. You can choose a project to do, whatever you. I'll try to cover, and it's covered in this book, you know, different things of that are appropriate. But definitely close to the end, we are moving towards real dynamic web applications that are, you know, basically Polymer and Angular based. But we cover Canvas quite a lot. We'll cover models quite a lot, because I cover them in this book, you know, with Ivo, and we can really, we'll see different types of projects, certain games, but you have to guide me, you know, if something is boring, you have to tell me, you know, please, you know, this is boring, you know, this is fine with me, you can tell me that straight to my face without any problems, or, you know, we prefer, you know, to spend more time on that, so, you know, we have our Start on That community, so please, you know, guide me, not today or tomorrow, but, you know, gradually when we pick up, you can guide me and we can decide together what to do, where to spend more time, and what you are going to do to come a little bit better prepared so that we can spend our precious time on the most difficult or most interesting things with Dart. I really love Dart, I must say. I've been programming for quite a long time, and this is the first time that I'm quite comfortable with the language. I programmed quite a lot with Java, not that much with JavaScript. I didn't like JavaScript, you know, it took me a long time, you know, to jump into it, because I just, you know, there are languages that you like or you don't like. You know, I really didn't like JavaScript. I must say that. That's a personal preference. But I went through it, and I went through different languages. This is the first time in my long, you know, career that I feel comfortable with the language like that, and I can see that I can do many things with this type of language. So you know, if we work together in these 12 weeks, I think we can go further and learn more if we work together, basically. And we have now our Start on That community. And if you're interested later on, you know, we can continue with the Smart on That later on and do certain things together, you know. So, but it's up really to us. So you have to guide me with questions, comments. Frank, you know, have to be frank with me and say, Jenan, this is boring. Please, you know, drop this, you know, or please, could you spend more time on that, you know? And the only thing I'm telling you, and I'll be trying to tell you, like, I have planned to spend the next week on magic boxes as well. But you have to guide me. You have to tell me, Jenan, that's okay. Or could you spend 2 weeks more, you know, or something like that? Or okay, let's next week we'll finish this. It would be you have a book, you have certain projects, and then we can discuss them every single time, and we can choose a game, you know, for the next project, etc. But we can move together in this way and suit whatever your needs are. Any comments, reactions?
So I'm going to say something real quick because unfortunately I have to leave in about 5 minutes. But I mean, now that I kind of get an understanding of how you're running this, I like it. I do like the idea of spirals and working through code in a structured way so you kind of know how to build on it. For instance, I just want to give you guys some background. How many of you are familiar with Meteor? Anyone here? Okay, if you haven't, like, okay, I see a hand up. So to me, spirals are like what Discover Meteor is to Meteor. I mean, you kind of take one project and you work your way through it. You don't just understand the language, but you actually understand how to structure your code, how to think incrementally, so I like it. Part of the fault for this thing is on me because I didn't realize I had to kind of do a bunch of stuff before I came. I will do that next time. But to that point, yes, I agree. I think having more focus on code and just like coming in ready to just dig in and change stuff is better. My real interest in Dart is actually to a large extent in learning Dart Angular because I come from that side of things. But the reason I brought up some of the, are you going to talk about concepts was not so much because I wanted to see slides, but because I don't really understand all the internals. So the way I see it is, we go through spirals. I go ahead and look at them beforehand, and if I have things that I don't understand, I'll bring them up to the, as part of this talk, and I think that'll be cool. And having kind of the G+ community will help.
This is great, Nitya. This is exactly, the way I prefer to teach and work with you guys. You do certain things. We have our community. You can ask questions before. We can decide together. But I'm sure that if we are sort of like a team, and we have a similar objective, that we can go much, much, much faster than just a bunch of slides and I explain them.
Absolutely. So you were talking about a pet project. I'll tell you what my pet project is. So if you guys have like thoughts on where I should start, you can let me know. I really want to do visualizations with Dart. Like, I don't know if there's the equivalent of a D3 package that works, but I really kind of was interested in an end-to-end application where you can pull in data feeds from any one of sources and help people visualize it in a way that makes meaning. So that would be kind of my outcome for what I would expect to see in 12 weeks. Like, can I, in 12 weeks, get to the point where I can have built this thing?
Great, Nitya. I think, we should all try to do something like that, to have our, we can even have a common project. So after maybe 4, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, we can decide together to choose one object and work together on it from the very beginning and forget about teaching and course. And then just come here and discuss, once a week things that, so it's up to you guys and me together to make something out of it. I'm a guy who usually wants to get 3 things out of one thing. So what I mean by this is, for example, if we go together through this course and you learn that is one thing, and I help you learn the basics of that. This is one thing. The second thing would be great if we could maybe start a blog together on learning Dart and then write certain things together and make a little bit more visibility out of it. That's like one potential idea, but there are many other ideas. So what I usually try to do with every single thing that I do, I usually want to have at least 3 outcomes. So if I teach a course, that is one thing. I'll teach or learn the course. The second one is make some publicity out of it, write a blog entry or do something together or start a new project, whatever we decide together. If you have some kind of interesting project, to start with, why not? We can choose a project to work together or have 2 teams working on 2 different projects or have 2 teams working on the same project. After just 4 or 5 weeks, forget about teaching and learning and then just jump into a project. It's up to us to decide, what is the best approach to go further. So, what I'm asking you is to communicate with me, in our Start on Dart community, basically.
I really like the idea of in a couple of weeks, once we've gotten some of the specifics of the language out of the way, to have a project where we can all chip in and then just come like once a week and discuss what was done and why it was done in those ways. And I think we could get out of it more than just learning Dart, working on the. I know personally I work usually on smaller teams where I make most of the decisions and stuff like that. So that an extra as of learning Dart would be learning to work on a project with more than just a few people and discussing about it once a week would be really nice.
That's great, Mark. And this is really my objective. I didn't think that I would discuss this the first week, but this is great that we are discussing this even the first week. So again, please guide me. If something is boring, tell me, Janan, it's boring, it's just fine with me. Or if you want to propose something for the next week, just propose it. Or you tell me when to stop with one project. So I plan to spend 2 weeks on Magic Boxes because, we can cover some basic concepts, functions, classes, all kinds of things, the basic stuff, and then move to another project. But if you prefer to stay a little bit longer, it's really up to you guys to guide me. But again, there is a responsibility on your shoulders with this type of approach, because you have to do something before and then inform me and others, and we fortunately have our community, to do that. But don't, I don't want to kill your, I don't want to, I don't want to spend too much time, on this, neither you, I guess. So we have to find a way to spend the minimum number of time and to get the maximum out of it, and that's the key for me. So please, guide me. We have our Start on Dart community. You can give us some comments, some suggestions. We can discuss these things. And we are connected now, so we don't have only to spend an hour like that. We can spend a few hours there, here and there, before and after, and a little bit later on, even start a new project together or something. Whatever is appropriate, for us, it's up to us. To decide. So I'm really asking now to everybody to be more active and more proactive, basically, with this type of course. And I'm sure that you will benefit more out of it. But if you don't have time, if certain things are more difficult for you, if everybody is not at the same level, it's fine with me. We can continue using some kind of a regular approach as well. But I'm inviting a discussion on how to proceed, and you can guide me. I can suggest certain things. We have our community now, so but we can talk about it and decide together. I must say only one thing. I'm a really project-driven guy. Okay, I'm a professor at university, but I do all kinds of projects, and that's what's exciting. To me, basically. So I'm really, and you can see that the spiral approach is more like a project-driven approach to teaching and learning. And after a while, we can forget about slides and courses, and then just say, well, let's do together a project. Why not? After a while, and if it takes a little bit more time later on, let's open the second phase, or we'll get a smart on that, and not just start on that. So and then do a project together. Whatever we decide together would be great, because the only thing I know is if you are proactive, you will learn much more, and we can go much further than just by sort of using the classical approach to teaching or learning. So I invite you. We have our community. I invite you to give me your comments, your suggestions. I'm very frank, and I'm not a guy who will be upset, if you say something directly into my face. So please, if you don't like something, just tell me I don't like it, or you spend too much time on that, or I would prefer, to spend more time on that, or I have this suggestion. We have our small community. We can discuss these things, when we have time, and then we can proceed together. What I would really like to develop with our small community, Start on That, if we could, after a few weeks, start working even on a new project and start developing certain things that are of interest to all of us. But it's up to us to decide these types of things. Okay, so the only thing I'm inviting you, we have our Start on That community. Participate in, with suggestions, comments. You can criticize me with, I'm completely open, and I'm just fine with all of that.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good to me too.
Great.
Yeah. To me too.
If I could only add one or two more things. One thing that I would really like is, are we going to see any server-side programming in Dart? Because to tell you the truth, like 2 weeks ago, I was focusing on starting a new project, and I wanted to choose a different technology. My background is I've been programming ASP.NET, and when I had to start this new project, I was thinking to start it with Dart. The reason I did not choose Dart, and I started the project in Meteor, which is basically based on Node.js, was the reason that, I see so many examples. To me, Dart is cool because you can write the same language on the server side and client side. This is, to me, was the biggest cool thing in Dart. So basically, I can find just one common language and use it everywhere. The reason I didn't start in Dart basically was because I didn't find anything that proved me that actually Dart on the server side is something that I can rely on. Something that I mean, I'm sure it's going to be stable. It's going to work in production. The first problem was that I need to use MongoDB. Then I look at the driver for MongoDB written in Dart, as Dart is still new. I believe the version was like 0.1. So even if Dart now is rented only on the client side, I would also like to see something on the server side that for now probably or is premature or is missing or I don't know. So actually the reason that I decided to learn Dart now to me became a pet project, not anymore the primary project. So I'm always open to see everything new. I started with Angular Dart. I've been developing some things just for hobby, but for now, I don't know. I don't feel enough comfortable to start a code that probably in the next month will be a production code. So if you can also see something on the server side or something that actually in the real world can be developed and used, to me would be really nice. I don't know, guys, if you also feel the same or not.
Well, I absolutely agree, hands down. That's the reason why I stuck with Meteor. But yes, hands down. And for me, it's kind of like a couple of things which I thought Dart would bring because of the Google backend is, if it's server side, will they do better analytics? Will they do profiling? They'll probably end up doing something that will kind of like work with App Engine and the cloud. But yes, MongoDB, number one that I wanted. So yes, I would completely back it.
Okay, great. You know, you can guide me. You can tell me after 2 or 3 weeks, Jenna, look, you know, this is our interest. I'm a very proactive guy, and I can switch things pretty quickly. And I'm comfortable server side, client side, graphical side, whatever, So just guide me, tell me what you prefer, and together we can define what is the best thing, for us. So I'm always for the proactive approach.
Jenna, sorry, it's 4:30 for me and I have to run for another call, but I just want to say thank you very much. And will you, I'll try to be ready for the next thing. Will you schedule it again for the next session? Will it
Sure.
be okay, cool. I'm sorry, I got to run, guys. I'll see you next time.
Sure.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Okay, so basically what I'm inviting you to tell me just frankly, Jenna, this is the better way to do it. Spend too much time on this. Please, could you do this? So just guide me. What is the best way for you, to learn these things, and that would be great for me as well.
Okay, Jan, may I give you just one small hint related to your project on GitHub using the spirals?
Sure.
It's just a small hint. I see that for each spiral you have created a separate folder, right?
Yes.
One thing that I saw learning Meteor is those guys did something really smart. Basically, for each spiral, they created a separate tag.
Okay.
So actually, if you are moving between these spirals through Git, you just need to check out a different tag. So always staying on the same working directory, working copy, I don't know how you call it. So while you're just moving, like I start from the spiral number 1. I see how what you wrote. I start to mess up with your code. When I decide to go on the next spiral, I'll just check out the tag, which is probably named spiral 2. And actually, I discard all my changes and continue the work on the same working copy. This is, to me, probably much easier during the development, but I mean, this is just a hint, and it's up to you.
Okay, I'm a very, I'm always listening. Okay, so it's up to you to guide me. And I'm a guy who can, take any questions or any comments or any criticism. Believe me. So you have to tell me, Jenna, this is slow, this is fast. Could we do this? We prefer to do that, or I'm completely open, and you have to guide me after, for sure after 2 to 3 weeks, when we all have a feeling, how this is going. So please be active in guiding me what is best for you. Then I would know, really what is best for all of us.
Okay.
Okay.
I must apologize. I have to move on to my next appointment as well. But thank you all for this session. It was very interesting. I look forward to the next one.
Okay. So thank you, and we'll decide together how to proceed. We will have enough time, to discuss it together. Thank you for your participation, and I hope that we can do something interesting together. After a while, we can even do, a project or work together on a project, whatever, it's up. So please, I'm a very flexible guy, and we can decide together, many things. Thank you very much for your presence, and until the next time.
Thank you very much for your time too. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, and we'll see you next week, and we'll probably try and talk a little bit more there on the community for what we'll be doing next week.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.